Ladies and gentlemen, the Oklahoma City Thunder have gone up 3-2 on the San Antonio Spurs. And before I talk about anyone else, I am going to give credit where credit is due because I spent, most of my last video I spent talking about this series. I was talking about how Chet Holmgren hasn't done anything for anyone in this series. He has been, he has been just kind of doing nothing. He's been kind of doing nothing all series. Last night, though, Chet Holmgren, 16 points, 11 rebounds, an assist, a steal, a block. He was efficient. He played good. Matter of fact, he played better than Victor Wembanyama. That's not saying much because Wemby didn't play good at all. But still, Chet played good. And so, you got to give credit where credit's due. Because I spent half of my last video where I talked about the Thunder, talking about Chet, doing a whole lot of nothing. And he did a whole lot of a few things last night, all right? He had a double-double. He was efficient, 16 points. Come on, that's pretty good. All right? And you know who else is pretty good? Jared McCain, 20 points last night. First playoff start of his career in the Western Conference Finals, no less. He had 20 points. And now I would like to remind everyone that the Philadelphia 76ers traded this guy who is starting in the conference finals, putting up 20 points in a game. He's done it twice now, matter of fact. They traded him for a late first-round pick. Philly don't know what they're doing. They don't have a clue, okay? Jared McCain played great. Alex Caruso, once again, has a great game. He's been the second best player in this series for OKC, and if the Thunder win, honestly, he's got a good case for being the Western Conference Finals MVP. Like, I saw someone say that. I hadn't thought about it. I saw someone say that in like an Instagram comment section. And normally there's not a lot of good comments or ideas that are floated throughout Instagram comment sections. However, I thought about that and I was like, you know what? That is that seems appropriate. A Western Conference Finals MVP for Alex Caruso. Caruso had 22, 2 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 5 of 10. He shot 50% from 3. 8 for 8 from the free throw line. He's played great. His defense has been great. I think he's averaging like 20 points in this series if you exclude Game 4 where he didn't make any shot and had 0 points. If you exclude Game 4, then this brother's averaging 20 points, right? Which is pretty good. Isaiah Hartenstein, he had 12 points, 15 rebounds. Plus 24 when Hartenstein's on the floor. SGA, 32 points. Wasn't efficient, but hey, the brother had, 32 points. 16 of which came from the free throw line. Look, there's some people that, think, oh, yeah, he flops on the calls, but they're all still fouls. Just don't foul him, right? That's what some people say. Some people say, oh, just don't foul SGA. Look, man, if you think he's getting fouled this much, okay, fine. But, you can't tell me he's getting fouled more than Stephon Castle, who shot 8 free throws. You tell me he's getting fouled more than Steph Castle. He's getting fouled more than Wemby. Yeah, I don't know about that. But nevertheless, it was a good game for SGA. 32 points, 9 assists, 2 steals. He was 2 for 3 from 3. That was pretty spectacular, I'll tell you that. The Thunder played a great game. They were great defensively. They were great offensively. They were getting making the right passes, making the right plays. They were just doing everything right. They were firing on all cylinders. Chet, he got going early. He had 8 points in the first quarter. That was great. Shai's been pretty rough in all the first quarters of these games, but he always puts it together for the most part. Jared McCain and Alex Caruso continue to be amazing for the Thunder. This is, I think, yeah. So Caruso's had like 3 20-point game, or two. He's had 2 20-point games. He had a 15-point game. He had an 18-point game. One of his 20-point games was a 30-point game, actually. But Kane's had 20 points. He's had 24 points. He's had 12 points. He's been very, very good. And the Thunder are just, last night they won by 13, 114 to 127. Absolutely great win for them. And, here's the thing about it, man. Here's the thing about it, okay? A lot of people going to get on the internet, and they're going to say, oh, brother, those referees were terrible last night. Those referees practically handed the game on a silver platter to the OKC Thunder. And there were some downright horrible calls last night. Some downright horrible officiating sequences last night. All right? Like, for example, within the space of 30 seconds, Luke Cornett put up a shot, and as the ball is literally like 5 inches above the rim, right? Here's the rim, here's the ball, right? Perfectly in line. Some dude came up and swatted it away. That's a goaltend. Very obvious goaltend at that. Referees didn't call it. So that's 2 less points for the Spurs. Then, like 10 seconds later, the ball goes out of bounds. It's off of Chet. They called it off of the Spurs. A replay shows it wasn't off of the Spurs. I'll give the referees the benefit of the doubt there. Maybe it's not the most obvious out-of-bounds call to get wrong in the world. But then they don't let Mitch Johnson challenge it because he was going to challenge it, but then the referees all huddled up, and they were, like, talking about something. I don't know. Clearly it wasn't about the play because they didn't change the call. But, maybe they're asking each other, hey, how the grandkids or whatnot. And then Mitch Johnson stands there for 10 seconds, waving his finger, saying, hey, I'm trying to challenge, as the referees have the ball. The ball's not been inbounded. They then inbound the ball. Mitch Johnson loses his mind. Hey, I was trying to challenge there, refs. Start screaming at him, and he gets a tech. So, in the space of 30 seconds, they took away 2 points from the Spurs because they didn't call a goaltend. They then they lost the Spurs a possession by getting an out-of-bounds call wrong. They then lost the Spurs that possession again by not letting Mitch Johnson challenge it. And then they gave the Thunder a free throw for calling an attack on Mitch Johnson, who was absolutely 100% right to lose his mind at that. Because, dude, he stood there for 10 seconds waving his finger trying to challenge the call. I say all that to say the reffing was awful in the game. However, what was worse, in my opinion, was San Antonio's offense, which leads me to say, hey, they didn't lose the game because of the refs. The refs were terrible, and guess what? The Spurs were even worse, okay? The Spurs were trash. They just were. They just were trash. Wembenyama was trash last night. I am astonished at the fact that the Spurs have 2 references for how to win games against the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals, and they have 2 references for how to lose games. And they took nothing from their references on how to win and applied it to the game last night. They just didn't. I don't have to be a basketball genius, a head coach, a good head coach, a bad head coach, an assistant coach. I don't have to know what I'm talking about to look at a few facts. All right. When Victor Wembanyama takes 20-plus shots in the Western Conference Finals, the San Antonio Spurs have never lost. When he takes less, they've never won. Okay? All right? That's the facts. Okay? When Victor Wembanyama, regardless of how many threes he takes or makes, when Victor Wembanyama makes at least 8 two-point field goals, most if not all of which being in the paint, the Spurs are undefeated in the Western Conference Finals. When he makes less, they're yet to win a game. In Game 4, Victor Wembanyama took as many two-pointers as he took shots total last night. Not counting his threes, in Game 4, he took as many two-pointers as he took total shots last night. And let's see, where is it? He took 15 shots, 5 of which from 3. He made 0 of them which means he went 4 for 10 in the paint because that's, pretty much where all those shots were from. Can you imagine any all-time great center having an All-NBA first team season? Because Wemby was All-NBA first team. Can you imagine any all-time great center? Shaq, Kareem, Akeem Olajuwon, Wilt Chamberlain, any of those guys. Bill Russell, Moses Malone, anyone you want to put in there. Can you imagine any of those guys, All-NBA first team season, and they take only 10 shots in the paint in a game, in a Western Conference Finals game, and make no more than 4 of them? Can you imagine that? That'd be ridiculous. And that's what this performance from Wemby was. It was ridiculous. 4 for 10 from the 2-pointer range. And if you count all the threes he missed, and most of which he shouldn't have taken, he was 4 for 15. He shot 26%. That is awful. That is an awful offensive game from Victor Wembanyama. He was barely in the paint, it seemed like. The brother was barely in the paint at all this game. Isaiah Hartenstein is guarding him for the most part. And, hey, maybe Hartenstein's grabbing him. Maybe he's fouling him on every play. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows or cares? Isaiah Hartenstein is not some well-renowned defender whose mere presence keeps 7'5" centers away from the paint. What are we doing? Get in the paint. Get in the paint. You're 7'5". You're better than everyone else. Get in the paint. Come on. It's just a terrible game from Wemby. You know who else wasn't good? De'Aaron Fox. Despite making the most money on this team, the brother couldn't even be bothered to put up 10 points. All right? He was also, like Victor Wembanyama, 4 for 15 from the field. The best player on the Spurs in Victor Wembanyama and his, co-star, all-star, De'Aaron Fox, both shot 26% in this game. That's ridiculous. De'Aaron Fox wasn't very good. He did have 8 assists. That's solid. But like everything else, what are we doing? 9 points. Come on, that's a joke. 0 for 4 from 3. 4 for 15 in general. The one thing I will say about De'Aaron Fox is I think he's had there's no way he's had more than 4 free throws this entire series. I think that's a little ridiculous. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how he's only had 4 at most. I don't think he had any in Game 3, which is his first game of this series. He maybe had 1 or 2 in Game 4, and Game 5 he had 2. Stephon Castle was the best player for the Spurs. 24 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals. He was 7 for 11 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and 7 for 8 from the free throw line. Someone was at least efficient on this team. Julian Champagnie had 22 points, 8 boards. Keldon Johnson had 15 points. But, here's the thing about it. And to get back to my point about Wemby and him needing to have the ball. Wemby needs to have the ball in his hands. He needs to be dominant, okay? Because when you look at this, Julian Champagnie, 22, Keldon, 15, those are great games from both of those guys, and they still lost by 13 points. Because here's the thing about it. It doesn't matter what those guys score. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Julian Champagnie could go out there and he could drop 100 points. And the Spurs would still lose if Wemby was having a bad game offensively. The Thunder are winning because their bench players and their role players, they're stepping up. All right? They're winning their games because of them. Not to say SGA has been bad. SGA has been great, but they're winning the games because of the role players. The Spurs have not won either of the games they've won in this series because of how many points Keldon Johnson or Julian Champagnie or Devin Vassell have scored. They've won these games because of Wemby. That's why they've won these games. Wemby needs to be aggressive. He needs the ball in his hands. He needs to stop taking all these threes, especially when he's not making them. He needs to get in the paint. The 2 games the Spurs won in this series were the games that Victor Wembanyama dominated in the paint. That's what he needs to do. All right? Julian Champagnie took as many shots as Wemby. That should not be the case ever. Okay? Wemby needs to take more shots. Game 6, Wemby needs to be aggressive. He needs the ball in his hands. He needs to dominate in the paint. That's how the Spurs will win. They're going to be in San Antonio, so he has no reason not to do all those things. All right? He's going to be in front of his home crowd that's going to be cheering him on. So he better have the game that he needs to have, or else we're going to be seeing the OKC Thunder in the NBA Finals for the second straight year.